Hello and welcome to the channel. My name is Annalisa, and today I am doing another watercolor painting in my little watercolor sketchbook. In this sketchbook, I'm trying to do pieces that are a little simpler, a little more experimental, and a little bit more mood paintings. So I'm really feeling in the mood for very nature-y type paintings right now, and I'm going to be making another one next week to take part in the Growing Garden Art Challenge, I believe it's called, that's hosted by Dina Tollefson, because I like to take part in a lot of her challenges because they're so much fun and I really like to share and get inspired by other artists. At the moment, I'm planning on painting something inspired from my own garden, but we'll see if I stick to those plans as the week goes on. But right now, I was inspired to paint something to do with a fairy house because my mom and I have just recently been working on our little fairy garden. We started a few years ago to make a little fairy garden because we saw all of these really cute fairy props, I guess you would call them, in various garden stores. So little bitty, like, what are they made of? Clay or ceramic little houses and little fairy figurines and cute little like benches and wells and stuff like that. And so we found like a bunch of cute little plants that we can put around that will be sort of to scale with the itty bitty houses. And so we've got like a snapdragon for a tree and a lot of this clover that grows really low to the earth and that makes really good sort of grass simulation. And I'm going to show you a clip at the end of the video of what our fairy garden looks like in the real world. But I decided I wanted to paint a little fairy house that is sitting in a tree for this piece. And so I made some branches, and I wanted this one to be another one that was quite loose in style and wasn't trying too hard to be realistic, but was more something that was to give you an idea and a feeling, then be a really accurate representation of how things work. And so I was thinking of doing a maple tree because maple trees are some of my absolute favorites. And then I remembered that I can't draw maple leaves for some reason. Like, I've practiced and I've tried to draw them while looking at photos of maple leaves, and for some reason the shape of how they work just, I can't recreate it. And so I drew something that is kind of partway between a maple leaf and an oak leaf for these. So it's in kind of an imaginary magical tree. And so I decided to make my little fairy house sitting on this branch be kind of like some of the figurines that we have, and also like some of the ideas of fairy houses from movies like Tinkerbell. There are a lot of little fairy houses made out of plants and things on those movies, and that's kind of the general idea with a lot of fairy houses. They're very plant-based and sort of assume that fairies take all of their building materials straight from nature without a lot of processing. And so I just made a simple little cylindrical house with a little flower cap on top for the roof, and I decided to go with a round hobbit-like door because I've seen a few of those on Tinkerbell, because, you know, they're fairies so they can fly in. They don't have to have their door have like a flat bottom to it. They can just fly over the threshold. And so I also decided to make it look like there was a pattern of leaves, so the main part of the house is made of leaves while the top part's a flower, and decided to make it look like little twigs were the hinges on the door and the doorknob, and I put a little window on the side with little twigs for the, I don't know what those are called, but in old windows when they had to separate them because they couldn't get glass panes big enough, whatever those little separators are called. And on this piece I also used a little bit of masking fluid because I've been working on preserving my whites lately, and I wanted to add some of the highlights to like the petals and the leaves before I put down my colors so that I wouldn't have to use opaque inks and mix mediums. Because while I don't mind doing that, I also like to grow my skills and figure out how to make highlights with other ways. And so that's how I made the lighter spots on the petals and that leaf that is to the left of the little house. And it's a little difficult to use my masking fluid because it comes with a dropper, and so it's a bit of a blunt instrument. So I made those highlights a little smaller by adding color later. And I made my little bench kind of swirly twirly with some browns for twigs and then some pink, maybe there's petals in there, and then some green, and just kind of mixed it up and had some fun. This is a pretty simple illustration, just a little bit of background. The foreground's not too crazy, just something from my head, but I had fun making it and I felt really inspired, so I'm glad to have this next little page in my sketchbook done. I'm quite happy with it. And now on to a little tour of my fairy garden. So we start over here. We're going to put some flagstones down for this to be a path. But right now we've got several succulents because a couple years ago we had really good luck with succulents in our fairy garden. Not only did they not die, they actually grew and reproduced. And this is that little clover, not clover, it's mint. That's what it is. This mint that makes really good ground cover. It spreads out really nicely. And some little fairy houses, a lot like the one that I made, and little figurines. And then we have kind of small, I don't know what these white flowers are, but they make like a bush-sized thing for fairies. And I made these out of clay a couple years ago, and the paint is mostly gone, but they're pumpkins. And some more ground cover. And this is supposed to be a pond. And then we have a cute little arch and a cute little bridge. I love bridges. Over to another pot where we have our big house. And this one has a solar panel on the back, so it lights up at night with our pretty, what are these called? They're my favorite flowers, snapdragons. And it's like a flowering tree. And wow, because I love those. So that's our fairy garden. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!